We've done it again. It's another episode of the Zero Oscars. I'm John,
I'm
I'm,
Eli.
I'm Kyla.
I'm Alex.
and with us is our most specialist guest, Kady Dill, hero, friend of the show, uh, published novelist, bad movie aficionado, astronaut, hero. Kady, welcome.
Thank you.
So, how are you guys doing? How are you guys doing this week? Seen any good movies? Before we talk about the film we just saw.
Doing good. I watched some fun movies. I watched Alien for the first time. Fantastic.
Oh,
I've been
flick.
lame and not watched it all the way through yet. I also watched the movie Lock, which is Tom Hardy in a car for an hour and a half, getting a bunch of phone calls. It's actually very good. Highly recommend it.
Okay.
John, did you watch anything?
I have watched almost nothing. I watched a few episodes of Community, just rewatching that show. Strong stuff as always. I did watch last night. It was 2 a.m. I was bored and I was like, I want to watch a movie. I hadn't watched the movie for the show and I wasn't intending to, which made my finishing this film dicey, but I did manage to finish it. But I did start this film it was called like Code 8, and it's on Netflix. It came out last year, I think, and it's basically about what if superheroes face the same sort of prejudice that people of color faced? And as I'm sure you can guess, it was not tone deaf, and it definitely was it definitely was fair on all counts. But it really lets you see the struggle that white people with the power to manipulate electricity are faced with, on a daily basis. So I only got like 30 minutes into that. It was okay. I fell asleep, so who knows what happens, but maybe I'll finish it. That's about it.
Fair. I watched this little movie called Every Time I Die, which was very odd. It involved a guy dying. But then when he died, he would go into someone else's body and just like take over.
Did he get to pick?
Hmm?
Did he get to pick who he was invading?
No, it was random.
Okay.
Overall, well, not random, like it was contained within a group, but he didn't have control over it.
Mhm.
But the most interesting part of the movie, like overall it was all right. The most interesting part was when he went into the body of a guy who had DID. And for like, there was a few like minutes in the movie where he wasn't sure if he had actually been the other person and died,
That's
or
cool.
if he was just having an episode as the guy with DID that I liked quite a bit. But besides that, it was kind of a weird sci-fi thing. I enjoyed it though.
Where'd you watch it?
It's on Netflix, I think.
Okay.
Sounds like a deadly version of Quantum Leap.
It's pretty accurate.
Wait, is he not dead in Quantum Leap?
I haven't seen the finale. I don't know.
I haven't either. Alex, what about you? What have you been watching?
I haven't watched anything actually besides the movie we're discussing today.
You have a commitment to only watching the films you were necessitated to see, and I respect it.
Yeah, I don't want to muddle the timelines and continuity in my brain.
This is just sort of a preliminary question, but do you think you would have, and I don't even know how you felt about the movie we watched today, but do you think you would have, if you had watched a good movie in between watching Manos: The Hands of Fate and They Saved Hitler's Brain, do you think that would have changed how you felt about watching They Saved Hitler's Brain?
Possibly.
Okay.
I think if I watched a movie I knew that I was going to like,
Mm-hmm.
then it probably would have maybe viewed this one a little bit more negatively.
Got a grade on a curve. Kady, what have you been watching? How you been doing?
Quite well, thank you. Last night I actually watched 2 award-winning films. I watched The Legend of Bobby 3, as well as The Man of Eli.
Thank you.
In our tour, I see. And to tell us a little bit about those films, because I've heard vaguely of them, but
Tell us how about the former one you mentioned is better than Latter. Or wait, The Man of Eli is the better one. Yeah. I forgot which order she said them in. Tell us about how The Man of Eli is better.
Well, actually, I showed them both to my boyfriend. He agreed with me that The Man of Eli is better. So,
I mean,
mainly
objectively.
because I had more screen time, but that's how it is.
Were you compare the? So you portrayed a character in both films, right?
I did.
Both of these films. These are both award-winning films. How do you compare the way that you're portrayed in both?
Well, they're both pretty similar in the fact that I was a Chick-fil-A employee in both of them, so nothing really changed in between.
Do you feel like you're sort of typecasted as Chick-fil-A employee, and why do you think that might be?
Quite honest, I haven't really thought about that.
If you were on the set of some upcoming production and they said, Kady, you can play any part, and you got the option to play something that was not a Chick-fil-A employee, who would you want to play? Who would you want to portray?
Probably Michael James Sobiak.
That's very
a good
strong
one.
stuff.
I thought you were going to say Dr. Galloway.
Oh God.
That's a good choice. So you would sort of be like, if there was a like a biography of him, would you play like just him through part of his life, or like would you play him the whole way, or what's the situation where you're playing Sobiak?
Not quite sure. Probably in a film like the one we watched today.
I think you would sort of be the resurrection of Sobiak if they saved his brain and planted it into something new. So I respect that. And for a moment I thought about giving context to who Michael James Sobiak is, but then I realized I didn't want to. So I won't.
His face is on this video right now, though.
He is on this video. He's
right
prominently behind Alex.
Honestly,
they're all real
body,
too.
But
There's also Eli. Twice.
It's true. Eli's all over the place.
Kylan, you're in here. Oh, wait. Kylan, there you are.
Oh,
There
yeah.
he is.
That's Sharon.
You're up there.
My head gets cut off, but I am riding that other man. Yeah. But all right, excellent. So we've seen some good flicks,
yeah.
And then we also saw They Saved Hitler's Brain.
Why did you put those into two different categories?
I didn't necessarily.
Okay, that's fair. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It was an implied exclusive award, but it could have been inclusive.
That's true.
And I'm hanging in that technicality, that ambiguity. But so we were thinking, maybe we could do some time synopses, because this film, guys, I don't know if you had this experience, a little convoluted. I didn't fully understand what was happening all the time, but
I still don't.
And perhaps we never will. But I think we should try to summarize this film to the best of our abilities.
Okay.
So I'd say let's start at 25 seconds. Somebody takes 25 seconds and summarizes what they can of this movie, and then the next person does 20, then 15, then 10, and then Kady, since you're our guest, you get the honor of summarizing everything you can about They Saved Hitler's Brain in 5 seconds. So do we have any volunteers to start who want to start off, or do you think we should just randomize it?
Actually, random.
We should probably just randomize it. I think that's the only fair way. Here, I'm going to...
We let fate decide.
Let's see. Random number generator.
I don't think it's possible to do in 25 seconds. I'm going to be honest.
That's
I don't think it's possible to do in an hour.
They couldn't summarize it real time.
Okay.
Also, for people watching, this movie is free on YouTube. You
Yes.
can find it on YouTube and watch it.
You can find multiple streams of it. It came out in 1968. It's in black and white. It's very accessible. All right. So somebody give me a number between 1 and 4.
3.
2.
1.
Alex? Okay, so I'll be 4. So I'm doing between 1 and 4. So 2 came up. It's probably backwards for you guys, but so who had 2? So Kylan will go first. So now,
Right, boy.
then okay, Alex, give me a number between 1 and 3.
2.
Eli?
3.
Okay, I'll be 1. I'll generate that one. 2 again.
Okay, 20 whole seconds, fellas.
Okay, so
I get 25.
so all right, Eli, pick a number between 1 and 2.
2.
This is the time it'll pick 1.
It picked 1. So I'll do it in 10. Wait, I'll do it in 15. You'll do it in 10. Kady will do it in 5.
Oh.
All right, so let me pull up. I wonder, would it be? I might share my screen of
With the timer.
Of the timer. That might be the best thing to do.
We also have no idea how to summarize the first 20 minutes because I have no idea what happened.
I put just 25. I just put timer for 25 instead of 25 seconds, and it pulled up a 25-minute timer, which would be very entertaining. No, stop.
Still couldn't do it all.
Sorry. Let me share this.
Just had to mute himself. He's gonna.
He's disappearing into the screen after Bubba. At least we had a Bubba sighting.
That's true.
Is it sharing mine? Can you guys see that?
Yeah. It's at 23 seconds.
Yeah, well, I'm going to reset it.
Okay.
So, Kylan, you were first, right?
Yeah. I'm going first.
All right.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, start.
So, movie starts. Some spy stuff going on. 2 cops. They're sort of doing stuff. They get killed by people. Who knows? This married couple. They go to a place, which is not Honduras. It's Maduras or whatever. Either way, meet a guy. There's Nazis. They took Hitler and saved his brain. The president's like, you're under arrest. But the president's, working with the Nazis. But he's actually not. They get away. They kill Hitler's brain. What? That's it.
It was impressive.
Pretty good.
You hit many of the plot. Really.
All right. Who is next? Was it Alex?
It is Alex. Oh, and he is back.
I love that Alex leaves the podcast every podcast we have.
And he gets back as soon as his name is mentioned.
All right, Alex, are you ready?
Oh, Lord, this is going to be difficult. But
All
yeah.
right, I'll count you down. All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, so the first 30 minutes of the movie, they don't matter. They're about 2 people that you think are the main characters, but they introduce other characters that you think are minor characters, but are actually the main characters. Anyway, people get kidnapped. They go someplace in South America, I think. Oh, God. Oh, no.
All right, that was it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I accidentally stopped sharing because I tried to put it in full screen
Not
for a
even
second,
close,
but
Alex.
the timer kept on.
You only made
okay.
it through like 40
Third act of
minutes.
film.
Also,
Halfway.
do you guys remember the names of the cops out of curiosity?
No.
It's like Tony and
Shaloub.
Warren or something like that. So it was me, right? 15 seconds.
I hate
Yeah.
that.
All right.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. I'm going. All right. There's a professor. He takes a thing out of a safe. Maybe they're plants. He goes to a car. It blows up. Oh my gosh! Medium wide shot. People scream away. Then there's cops. And then the cops are like, "We got to figure out what happened with this guy." They see an abduction. The guy gets abducted. He was actually holding all the. He was the antidote to the G Fuel. Okay. Well, that's about all I could do.
You got like the first 20 minutes.
Well, I was trying to get
Not even
sequentially.
close.
Yeah. I got to get different shades to this film. Okay. All right.
Hold on,
10 seconds.
Hold on. Okay.
Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
There's some kind of nerve gas and the government's involved in it, and there might be a conspiracy with the Nazis, but then the 2 main characters die, so they have to switch to 2 other main characters who go to South America, find out there's a plot with Nazis, they blow up Hitler's brain.
Ooh.
That was very
That's
good. That was
good.
much better than mine.
Well, I had time to see what all you guys said.
That's true. Yeah. It's sort of an iterative process.
Now,
All right.
Kady,
And let's
you
see.
have 5
All right,
seconds.
Kady, we have full confidence in you. So I'm just all right. Just tell me when you're good and I'll count you down. All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
A bunch of shit happens, and then Hitler.
My
Incredible.
God, you got it. That is beautiful.
Spot on.
All right. Excellent.
So, with more than 25 to 5 seconds in tow, John, would you like to give a detailed summary of
Yeah,
they
yeah.
saved Hitler's brain?
I'll try to give sort of the broad strokes of what happened in this movie, and please chime in as much as you would like, just so we can flesh out what's happening. But I'll just start. Frame 1. All right. So it starts off in a white man with a hat with facial hair goes to a safe and he unlocks it. He takes out some papers. We don't know what the papers are. He puts them in his briefcase. He then goes outside. Also, we've seen a sign that this is like El Camino chemical plant or something. I don't remember what it's called exactly. It's a chemical place. So he takes these papers outside. He goes to his car. We see a medium wide shot of his car, which is strict cinematic language, as we all know, that if you see a medium wide shot of a parked car, the car will explode. Car bomb, car bomb, car bomb. And that was when I knew this is probably going to be a good movie. Okay, so that blows up. And then his car is white because it's symbolizing that he's a good guy. And he has facial hair because he's a good guy. There's a lot of subtext in this movie. But then, black car. It was the people who probably blew up his car. That's implication of cinema. So they screech off. They're different because these guys are white guys in black suits with facial hair in a black car instead of a white car. So we know they're evil. So they screech off. And I'm trying to remember what happens next. Okay, so then we open, and it's the CID headquarters. Do you guys know what CID stands for?
Nope.
I thought Central Intelligence Department, because it's not the CIA, but
yeah,
I thought maybe that it's changed it.
That would make sense. I was torn, right? It was very unclear to me because we just see a shot of a building, and then text that says CID headquarters. It's never explained what the CID is. It is sort of vaguely, I think, to be understood as like an analog for the CIA or some other government force, because there's a point where someone's complaining that their wife thinks he's like a cop because he worked for the CID. You were going to say, Kylan?
So I looked it up, and apparently it's the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Division or something. Well, it says Investigation Command, but then down here on General Questions, on this side, it says, what is the CID's mission? So that's probably not the case in the 60s. I'm assuming they're not referring to this thing, but that's what it is now.
Okay. Well, just nondescript government agency, I guess, that has agents and do cases.
In a nondescript public building.
In a nondescript public building. Okay, so we open, and I think I went back to remember his name, and then I forgot his name again.
Tony.
No, Tony's the woman.
Oh.
It's like Warren something. Or
Warren Peace.
It's Warren Peace. We'll just call him Warren Peace. Okay, so we see an agent who is our presumed hero of the movie. Warren Peace. He walks into his boss's office. You called for me, boss? Yes, Warren, I have a case for you. You're going to be working with Tony to figure out what happened to this guy who blew up. Who's the guy we saw that blew up. And that guy was named like Dr. Baker or Baxter or something. I don't know. They only say it like one time. And they're like, he's the only one who knew the antidote to the formula for G-gas, which is this super deadly gas where one canister of it will kill every person within 750 square miles of the canister being released, which is wild. But, okay, so it's the super deadly gas. And he's like, only Baker, who is now conveniently dead, has an antidote. And Warren, like the genius he is just like, oh, Baker wasn't the only one with the antidote. He didn't even invent that stuff. And the boss goes, whoa, what? And the boss goes, tell me who also knows the antidote, because I would like to know that, because I'm a good guy. He goes, oh, Professor Coleman, obviously. What'd you say, Eli?
One of my favorite things is that guy is complaining that the dead scientist,
the boss is complaining that it's
blabbermouth. Right.
Oh yes, Warren is complaining that the guy's a huge
blabbermouth. He would tell anyone about what he was working on. And
He
immediately tells the boss, "Oh yeah, this guy was also working on it."
That actually is very good, and I didn't really pick up on that at the time. But yeah, he's like, yeah, Baker was a huge security risk. So he would tell anyone what he was working on. Anyways, here's exactly what he was working on.
Working on it.
So the boss goes, Coleman, then you say?
Yeah.
Huh, interesting. So we know that Dr. John Coleman has actually invented the antidote for G-gas, which is a great name, because I assume the G in G-gas stands for gas. So we can only presume that the deadly weapon that the Nazis will be employing to wipe out the world is called gas, or gas squared, or just 2 gas, perhaps. But anyways, so the boss, I don't know his name because they're very bad at introducing anyone's names. And I went to Wikipedia to try to find the cast list and stuff. which they have one for some characters, but it's like not very clear who anyone
Yeah.
is. I think they just rip them off the start because we have like 2 or 3 minutes of opening credits that are very standard, like TV movie, like here's the title, and then here's a long list of everyone in the movie because they preemptively show all the credits.
Which, by having credits, it did something that Manos was unable to do.
This is true.
Yeah.
I've got to say, just in general, I've got to say that this movie was definitely like better than Manos, in my opinion, because it has like, well, for one thing, it has dialogue, like actual audio, which is a big plus. Because already they're on, like they're punching above because Manos went and dubbed over everything. But this
the camera work also thought was actually pretty good.
I liked a lot of this camera work. There is, I did see a lot of people complaining, just like in the comments and stuff, about like there's a lot of first person shots pretty clearly, or unmounted camera at least in this movie, which is very similar to Manos. Like you can tell these are both, like the large chunks of these were shot like portably, which is like a little annoying in some cases, but a lot of it is like kind of dynamic and I kind of like it. It's like it's not perfect, but it's pretty good, honestly. That was at least my hint of it. So anyways, the boss is just like, was that you wanting to say something, Alex?
Oh no.
Okay. I didn't want to exclude anyone. But so the boss is like, you got to work with, we're sending another agent on this thing. Well, I don't know what they were. I guess you, War and Peace, must investigate the case of who blew up Dr. Baker or whatever his name was. You will go with, I think, Tony Robinson or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I don't
Something like that. An officer you've never met before, Tony, will be along tomorrow at your apartment to help you investigate the case. Cool. War and Peace goes back to his house. It's the next day. It's the next morning. A woman gets out of her car right outside of Warren's house. She goes, I've been looking for your specific address. And she lists the address. And he goes, yes, this is my specific address. And she goes, War and Peace? And he goes, yes. And she says, Tony Roberts. And he goes, Tony Roberts hasn't arrived yet. I'm waiting for him. And she goes, I'm Tony Roberts. And he goes, oh, okay. And so then he walks into his apartment and he lets her into the house. And then he like makes some sexist comments where he says,
not very woke.
It was the 60s.
I didn't know you were a woman. So this mission must not be very dangerous. And actually, to this movie's credit, I was kind of surprised because Tony Roberts immediately she's like, wait, hold up, you can't say that. And so she just gets up and she's just like, yeah, I'm going to go get a new partner because you're a jerk. And she's just like, I'm not going to force you to work with me if you don't want to work with a woman. And he goes, whoa, I didn't say that. It's going to look really bad on my report. And he goes, but it will look really bad on your report too if you're thin-skinned. And then she goes, and so then they work together. And the whole problem was apparently pushed to the side.
Honestly, that would have been a better dynamic than the actual main character.
I totally agree. I was really enjoying the dynamic they had because they were like pretty funny together, and they like were like pushing back on each other enough, which was cool.
Yeah.
So it sets it up like they're going to be the main characters. I was excited because I was like, okay, cool. It's going to be like a buddy cop, like investigating like this mystery murder thing. Like that could be kind of cool. It's sort of like almost like a noir-esque, like updated, like late 60s film. But then it isn't because you guys will have to help me because they jump between scenes and characters so quickly, and there's so many characters that are very vaguely introduced and then not really ever hit upon again, that it's hard for me to remember exactly where it happens. But essentially, we're then introduced to Dr. John Coleman, who he and one of his associates at the chemical plant, they're like, he gets a strange phone call from his son-in-law, Phil, I don't know what his last name is.
Collins.
Phil Collins. his son-in-law, Phil Collins, is like, he sees him 5 minutes before. He's like, I'm going home to your daughter, who's my wife. And John Coleman goes, ha, that's my boy. And then they high five, and then he leaves. And then he gets a phone call that I don't know if this was what happened with your guys' copy, but from what I couldn't make out anything that was on the other end of the phone call.
Couldn't either.
Yeah, good.
So nobody had any idea what was being said. But
No.
it sounds vaguely menacing, and John Coleman is now very flustered, and so
Yes.
he's just like, I gotta go, Bill. And Bill's like, I'll come with you, and he goes, oh, okay. So they walk out of the chemical plant, and then they immediately get held up by a guy with a gun, and the guy with the gun is like, come with me, and they get in his car and they drive away. But who happens to be there but Tony Roberts? And Tony Roberts goes, oh, what? And she's very concerned that she's just witnessed a kidnapping or even a professor napping. And so she, like a hero, gets in her car, doesn't call for backup, doesn't report anything, and follows them to the scene of the crime. In fairness, I guess, obviously they don't really have cell phones or anything, so they might not have a convenient way to quickly call for backup, but it was still a little okay. But she goes to investigate. She goes to a house where Coleman is being held, and then she gets caught. So then she runs away. She then runs to a payphone on the corner and calls her associate, Warren Peace, and she's like, Warren, I think I've just been shot. Also, Coleman's been kidnapped at this place. And then, she gets shot.
Right.
And then it's the classic, telephone, corded telephone receiver is hanging down, instead of being put back. And it's just like, Tony? And so then Warren Peace goes to the place that Tony was to investigate what's happening. And there he finds his boss, I think. It's hard. All white people look alike. But so he finds his boss, and his boss is like, stick him here. And he goes, boss, how'd you know about this too? And he goes, and then Tony shoots him from off screen. She goes, perfect shot or something. And then she dies immediately.
He somehow got there from the payphone
Yes,
after being shot.
But she got there before the people who shot her who were in a car.
Yes.
Because they then pull up.
Yes.
They didn't mention Tony can teleport.
So so let's nail into this sequence of events. So Tony is at so Tony goes to a house. She's caught at the house. She's chased away from the house. She runs to a payphone on a street. Her attackers are following along in a car. They shoot Tony in the payphone. I guess they keep driving, right? Because they don't want to be at the scene of the crime. Tony then just shakes off being shot. She goes back to the place that she was just running from. She hides in the house, waits until the people that were in the car get back and come back to their house. She then hangs out until Warren Peace happens to walk through the door, at which point he does a standoff with their boss. But all while Tony's hidden in the shadows, her boss is about to shoot Warren Peace, and then she fires at Tony fires at the boss. The boss dies. Tony immediately collapses and dies because her purpose has been totally used up. She was running off the will to live in order to shoot her boss dramatically, and then there was nothing left in the tank. There's no saving her. Okay, so that's only 20 minutes into the movie. So I'm going to speed this up, but I'm unclear what happens next. So okay, so then
There's a chase scene.
Who's chased?
Warren Peace is chased by the Blues Brothers who shot Tony.
Well, he's in Tony's car.
Yeah,
he takes Tony's car and drives off, and
That's
then the
right.
people who shot Tony chase him.
That chase isn't resolved though, is it?
He
crashes
crashes
and dies.
Oh yes, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Which goes rolling.
It's very unceremoniously. He just drives and takes a turn poorly, and then flies into a power station, and then he's dead. So both of our main characters that we thought were the main characters of the movie are dead.
Yeah.
25.
I really thought he was gonna. I was like, okay, so he's gonna get out of the car or pop up in a scene later, but he never does because he dies there.
He's done.
I thought the exact same thing.
Then we go back to Phil Collins, who's Phil Day. I looked it up. And
Phil. We're having a Phil day with this one.
Yeah. So I don't remember if there's anything in between, but him and his wife were driving around and picked this guy up. I don't exactly remember how he got there.
So what I remember of this is that Phil Collins / Phil Day comes back to his wife, Casey, as in KC Coleman, and she's like, ah, I thought this was my husband. Thank goodness it's just Phil Day / Phil Collins, my husband.
My husband.
Yes, it's me, your husband, Phil Day
I was
/
really
Phil
hoping that
Collins.
was just bad acting, and she was like,
I
it
was
really
hoping-
wasn't her husband.
I was hoping it was an affair,
Yeah,
but it was
something
actually just her
interesting.
husband, and they just enjoy a little role play.
Oh, I have a fun fact about the actor
Yes.
that plays Phil Day. Wally Stalker is an English guitarist who toured with Rod Stewart and Air Supply.
Oh, how does
This has
that?
been your fun fact
About
I went to
Phil
his Wikipedia
Collins?
page and saw it,
about
and I was
his
like,
actor.
there's no way that's the same guy. But apparently, it links you
Apparently
to
it
it.
is.
So
I don't know why, but there you have it.
Incredible. But okay, so they go outside of their house to drive away. That is Phil Collins / Phil Day and Casey Coleman, his wife.
Right.
And then this guy goes, I really need to talk to you. And they go, what? No. And they try to get into his car. He goes, no, really, I need to talk to you, and pulls a gun out. And he goes, but it's all like good fun or whatever. And so then he gets in the car with them, and they're driving to like the airport, and he's trying to explain something to them that I don't totally remember. But then they're at a stoplight, and so it's rather than being two people in the front, one in the back, they're all three in the front across the passage, across the just the seat. I guess it's a very long seat, and and so they're all pulled up, and it's Phil Collins / Phil Day is driving, and then his wife is in the middle, and then their unknown friendly assailant is in the far passenger. A car pulls up beside them and just very nonchalantly just shoots the man who was holding Phil Collins / Casey Coleman at gunpoint, and that guy unceremoniously dies, and they go, oh no, but they're like, but we need to follow through whatever his plan was.
1 second.
Yes, please.
About that.
happens.
So, they shoot him. You can hear it. It's a gunshot.
Yeah,
He's laying there.
Blank.
And the wife's like, what just happened? And the husband's like, what are you talking about? And she's like,
The husband.
I think he's been hurt or something. I think he's dead.
The wife has to be like, I think he's hurt, and the husband's like, what?
He was just clearly shot.
Yeah,
Right.
it was from point blank. Was.
So originally, the guy thought there was going to be a silencer on it, but they added in the sound. So they're all acting as if they couldn't hear it, but it's clearly right there. They shot it.
It's so
with the silencer.
It's amazing because they stop the car, they get out, and then they're examining his body, and they're like, what happened? They don't know that this man has just received a fatal gunshot wound. They just, from all they know, he's just died inexplicably. Miraculously, he's just collapsed.
They put his body in a phone booth, and some random lady comes by and is knocking on it 2 seconds later. Opens up, and he falls out, and she screams 3 times.
It's a classic gag.
I don't understand why they just leave him in a phone booth.
Yeah.
It's a callback to Tony.
Yeah, but at this point,
the person they don't know.
You're not aware that they're in an intricate plot.
Yeah.
So for all they know, some guy jumped in their car and then died.
Some man kidnapped them, held them in their car, forced them to drive somewhere, and then mysteriously died of a gunshot wound. And they go, we'll just leave them. They go, we don't want to get caught up in this. And I guess we should say that the man who was holding them at gunpoint was just like, I know what happened to your dad, John Coleman, aka the father-in-law of Phil Collins. So that's the main reason that they were going with him. But
and he
says
they're
that,
Honduras.
Yeah, he says that he's being kept in Honduras, the fictional South American country. So they fly to Honduras. That is Casey Coleman and Phil Collins / Phil Day. Right. And they get there. They're greeted by the sheriff or the chief of police in the town, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, we're going to escort you to our one and only hotel where we have prepared your lodgings, which they don't find particularly weird that they were totally expected to be there when they didn't know that they were going until about 15 minutes before getting on the plane, but they're fine with it. So they go up to their hotel room, and a guy sneaks in, and he looks suspiciously like the guy who was just shot. And it's revealed they have a little tuffle, a little bada bing, bada boom, I guess. And at one point, Casey Coleman hits one of the men in the dark. They're both Phil Day / Phil Collins and the mysterious assailant are people, and she accidentally hits him over the head with the flowers, a flower vase.
Right.
But it turns out she actually hit Phil Coleman slash Phil Day slash Phil Collins. But it turns out to be totally fine because the assailant goes, he catches Phil Day and he puts him on the sofa and he goes,
Enjoy.
"Oh, I wouldn't want anything bad to happen to you, even though I just snuck into your room to attack you." And then he explains there's an intricate plot in which there's a bunch of Nazis who migrated from Germany to Mandurus. Is it Mandurus or Mandurus?
Yes.
I think it's
Whatever.
Vandorus, because I
It
kept
doesn't
thinking of
matter.
Honduras.
Yeah, so there's a lot of Nazis that travel to Mandurus, and they are planning to kickstart the Third Reich.
Mhm.
And he has a very long, extended sequence in which it's the the assailant head in like the corner of the shot, and it's like the opacity is reduced, and they're playing like wartime stock footage behind him for 5 or 8 minutes or something. It felt like forever, where he's giving a very detailed rundown of World War II in relation to the day that people found Hitler dead. But it turns out they didn't really find Hitler dead. They actually were running an experiment, and they found a way to keep Hitler alive, but not alive, because the characters go, so basically he's like, and Hitler is alive, and Casey Coleman and Phil Collins slash Phil Day are like, wait, so you're saying Hitler is alive? And he goes, no, I was just saying Hitler isn't dead.
Also, he's the best character. His name is Camino.
Yes.
That's
I have
Camino?
a fun fact about that actor.
Please share.
That actor, Carlos Rivas, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, was in The King and I, which won 5 Academy Awards.
Oh my
as
gosh.
well as True Grit.
Oh, yeah.
And an Alfred Hitchcock film that is also highly acclaimed, Topaz.
Yeah, so he's like a
Oh, he's
legit
phenomenal.
actor.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
his little, I mean, despite the horrible dialogue that little scene had, I did like his 1,000-yard stares. He remembered.
It's funny. It's pretty good.
It turned out his brother was the one who got shot, and he's like, my brother was there. He was like one of the doctors. And they're like, whoa, where is he? He's like, the guy he came to get you who died. That was him.
We've heard the whole spiel. World War II. Hitler isn't dead. Doctors saved him. They put his brain in a jar. He's been relocated to his fictional South American country, and he has prepared a plan in which he's going to use G-gas, or gas, in order to kill everyone else, including the United States, and then take over the world. So I guess, guys, what would your natural reaction be to hearing all this news? Like, what would your next action be if you happened to be Phil Day slash Phil Collins and Casey Coleman?
I really think I would immediately go shopping and have just a day on the town.
That makes a lot of sense. What about you guys? What would you do in this situation? Kady, what would you do if you just heard that Hitler's still alive and he's about to overthrow the entire world very, very soon?
Probably get a little sightseeing in, go out for some drinks,
That
usual.
just makes sense. Yeah. Alex, Eli, anything different?
No, that seems like the most logical path to me.
To blow him up.
Wait, what? Like blow up like your credit card because you're spending so much money out on the town, or?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah. So I'm glad we're all on the same page, because this is exactly what Phil Day slash Phil Collins and Casey Coleman decide to do in the wake of finding out about this Nazi plot. They decide, well, now's probably as good a time as any to go get a drink and maybe watch some saucy dancing.
And specifically, buy dishes.
Did they say that
specifically,
specifically?
When the sister comes over and knocks him out of the chair, she says, my dishes. She bought dishes, and also mentioned, this would be a nice place for our second honeymoon.
Yeah, that also introduces a very important point, because they go to a bar or whatever, or a restaurant, after a full day of shopping. And who is it from across the room? But it's someone runs up screeching, Casey, I'm so excited to see you. It's Casey Coleman's sister, AKA the daughter of John Coleman, professor who is the only known antidote to G-gas, AKA gas. And they go, Suzanne or whatever her name is, what are you doing here? And she goes, oh, we were forced here at gunpoint, but they told me I could just hang out and go shopping, and it's kind of awesome.
She says they were really nice.
They're really nice guys. So she has also been forcibly abducted from presumably the United States and brought to Honduras. But she's, frankly, she's thriving, and she's having a very good time. So like sister, I guess. And like sister, like brother-in-law or son-in-law. Either one works.
Like Phil Collins.
Yeah, like Phil Collins. So anyways, they're all at a restaurant. All three of them are sitting together. And then a woman doing some sort of scanty, not scantily clad. Well, maybe. I don't know. It depends on your definitions, I guess. She's doing some alluring moves and progressively getting closer and closer to Phil Day / Phil Collins, and he is glued in. His wife's like, hey, stop that. Stop looking at her. And he goes, oh, what? And then suddenly she gets like right up next to him. Lights flash off. Gunshots all over the place. The lights come back on. The dancer is dead. Who did it? Well, probably not Phil Day / Phil Collins, because he didn't have a gun, and tons of other people had guns in this room.
The dancer, she actually lived, because remember afterwards, he's like, why did you do that? And she's like, I'll be okay.
Wait.
And that other guy is dead. The guy who like just sort of came in from the corner and just kept focusing on for no reason. He's the one who got shot and died.
Oh.
He also gets shot.
I was very confused.
Yeah.
Well, the guy that was sitting in the corner, he was briefly introduced whenever What's-His-Face was giving his World War II spiel.
Camino.
He was just like ominously sitting outside of their window, and World War II spiel guy was like, you see that guy there with the beard?
I thought it was a different guy.
He's an assassin.
Yes. This is right. Yeah, because there's an assassin who looks a lot like Adam Sandler, but in the 60s. He wears a white suit, but I think a black hat. So that's confusing.
He's kind of dressed like Colonel Sanders, just a little bit.
He's sort of like if Colonel Sanders was Adam Sanders. It's sort of like Colonel Adam Sandler's, and he's an assassin in Honduras, and he gets shot. But they decide that the sheriff, the chief of police here in Honduras, because they only have one policeman, he decides that it must have been Phil Collins / Phil Day and Casey Coleman. So he takes them to the president of Honduras,
also,
as you would do.
There.
Yeah, and also Suzanne is there somehow. And Phil is sort of unimpressed, and he goes, okay, we all know what's going on here. I didn't do this. What's the real reason you're bringing me around here? And the president goes, good, you asked. It has a lot to do with the fact that Hitler's still alive, and also we put his brain in a jar, and also we have your father-in-law, who is the only antidote to G-gas, aka gas, that we're about to use to nuke the entire world.
And a random businessman comes in who he knows apparently, who has like a really southern accent.
Oh, yes, yeah.
I was like, who is this guy? He just walks in and he's like, I'm doing it because you see this area here? I can mine it after the Nazis take it.
Oh, yeah. He's chosen to side with the Nazis in Honduras. This is like a southern tycoon of some sorts, like an American South tycoon, that is. And yeah, he's all in on it. He's like, I'm going to be running those diamond mines after the Nazis nuke the earth with G-gas, aka gas. And so Phil Day, ever maintaining composure, is unimpressed, and he goes, yeah. And they go, okay, whoa, it's a serious operation. We will show you. So they take him down to the vault and they show him Hitler's brain. And I don't know if you guys had this impression that I had. So we see Hitler's brain in a vat. It's just the head. I don't know.
Sometimes the shoulders.
It's the head and shoulders at most of Hitler. But there's something very strange in.
He's not aged a day.
He's not aged a day, for one thing, which is fair. He hasn't been doing a lot to get older. He's pretty minimal on that aspect. I can forgive that part. But it's weird that I've never seen a Hitler with bare shoulders. And there's something weirdly
attractive.
Yeah. Well, it's such a strange dynamic because the vulnerability of exposed shoulders is not a thing I typically associate with Hitler. Hitler, the Nazi.
Right.
So it's
not a lot of pictures of him swimming around. Yeah.
There's not a lot of pictures of unlike Vladimir Putin, there are not a lot of pictures of Hitler shirtless, perhaps riding a bear. So that was certainly something to get used to and something strange. Kady, did you have at all a reaction to seeing Hitler with bare shoulders? Did that stand out to you at all, as it did with me? No,
Not.
no. What was your reaction when we saw Hitler's brain and shoulders, Kady? If I may ask, what were you thinking at that moment?
Not really sure, and I'm concerned like why they just stopped at his shoulders.
That is a good question.
Keep the whole torso.
They have that technology and just
I mean,
leave the
fair.
rest.
You can do that. Why not just like take Hitler's entire body?
Yeah.
This is a good point because it really gimps Hitler. There's one point in the movie because they carry him around with like a handle, right? Like
They attach a handle to
Like
his
a, like
jar.
a GameCube.
yeah, like a GameCube. It's portable. You can play Smash on Hitler with your friends. But
He also barely talks.
yeah, he really doesn't do anything other than grunt and look kind of sad and scared, which is frankly not what I expected from Hitler.
No.
in this
Smiles
movie.
at one point. It's hilarious. This is when he's just
He's just doing the old grin.
He only says like one sentence, doesn't he?
Yeah.
and he just
His
yells
nose,
it.
My nose.
But after they see that, they take him to like the professor, and he's like, "Hey, I'm here." And they're like, "You didn't give him the antidote." He's like, "Nah, man, I ain't done that yet." You know, they sort of chill around, and they chill with him for a bit, and they're like, "We need to escape. We need to get out of here."
They're all in his prison cell,
Yeah.
John Coleman's prison cell, that is, and underneath the Manduran president's estate.
And you know, Phil Collins has this random idea that maybe some of these people are on our side. The trick is to not be caught by the ones who aren't. You know, very good thinking there.
That is not a paraphrase. I think that is word for word what he says.
Yeah.
He says the technique here is to work with the ones who are on our side, but not get caught by the ones who aren't. Which, frankly, is just he's a genius, and I can see why he was brought into this plot.
He has a penchant for stating the obvious.
so they stage an escape, and one of the people who is on their side, I believe, is the Manduran president, right?
Yeah, the president and chief police chief is like, "We're also prisoners. We're going to help you out of here."
Which was a little confusing, because
They brought them there.
they brought them there, yeah. So it's a twisted alliance thing, but eventually, so John Coleman, professor, PhD in chemical engineering, presumably, and Phil Day / Phil Collins, Casey Coleman, Suzanne Coleman, Camino, I believe. Is he still alive at this point?
He's alive.
He's alive the whole way,
yeah.
I think. I'm just confused because so many people die in this movie.
Quick
Alex.
tidbit, I'm sorry, is
Yes,
that
please.
Camino and the other guy that wasn't named that died they're actually the president's sons.
Yeah.
That's
Oh.
right.
Yeah.
It's about
I
family.
didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Well, they're like, you know, we got 2 cars out front, so we can split up. And, you know, Phil Collins is like, that's a good idea. So they get out there, you know, pretty easily. And they're like, okay, who's going with who? And Phil Collins, you know, being the genius, is like, me and the professor, you know, the only 2 people who know the antidote will go in the same car.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, they go in 2 separate, so someone will get to the proper authorities and get help. But they don't split up the 2 people who know the antidote, because that wouldn't make sense.
They also, so they discuss who's going to get in which car, but then it's wrong when it shows them in the car shots later. I think the other guy, not Phil Collins, but the guy who he said should get in the car with him, he ends up in the other car, even though it shows them in the car together.
I don't think it's incorrect. There's a shot there where his wife is like, "I want to go with you," and he's like, "You're such a little rebel. That's why I love you."
It still shows him getting in that car, though.
But also, I think this is very true to life, because I think we've all been in situations, even situations with each other, where you have a big group of people and you're trying to decide who will go in what car.
It doesn't
And
really
seems
matter.
like it doesn't really matter, and it seems like it's always different from, even if you have the optimal situation of how people should be split up, it won't happen. It will end up that 7 people will go in one car and 1 person will go in the other.
Another thing I thought was quite funny about that situation is they're booking it out of there, right? They run to
Yeah.
these cars.
They walk.
There are multiple Nazis on their heels with like rifles.
Yes.
And then they have the longest conversation as the alarm blares throughout the entire facility about who's going to get in which car. And then they exchange, like they say, oh, we're going to do this, we'll do this, blah, 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 blah. There's a kiss, the alarm is just going.
Yeah.
He's out there for like 2 minutes just talking.
Love wins, baby.
Killed me.
Well, eventually they finally get in the cars and start, driving away. And then the car that has Phil Collins and his wife, they're like driving. They're like, oh, these people are coming up on us. We can't outrun them. So they park and get out of their car and run into an alley for some reason. And there's a guy who gets out and he's like, yeah, I'm going to go get him. It's a Nazi guy. And he's running after him. They do some shooting back and forth. Eventually, Phil Collins is counting the number of bullets, and he's like, he only had 8. So he's empty. He doesn't have any more rounds. So Phil Collins comes out with the gun. And he's like, I was counting. You're out. Or no, he doesn't have a gun. And the guy's like, I got another gun. He does? Okay.
Yeah.
The guy's like, I got another gun. What are you talking about? And then he proceeds to not use that. He proceeds to not use it and gets shot by Phil Collins and dies.
No, he's not shot by Phil Collins. He's shot by the sheriff, I believe.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
He performs the same move that Tony Roberts performed earlier in the movie, where a character off screen kills the person who's about to shoot our protagonist with no justification whatsoever, which is how movies are meant to be.
Yeah. But they sort of run off, get in their car. Yeah. They drive to someplace. And then the businessman and like one of the top Nazis with, Hitler's brain in the car stop and see the dead Nazi. And that's like the businessman's son, apparently, which I don't think was hinted at before this at all.
No.
And the businessman is like, he's dead. And then the Nazi's like, you're weak. Just, it's fine. Come on, we'll go. And the businessman is like, no, you're evil. No one should let you rule the world. It took his son dying to realize this. And then, head Nazi guy shoots him.
Close to home.
Yeah, head Nazi guy shoots him. And then it zooms in on Hitler's face, and Hitler just starts smiling really creepily. And they leave. Yeah. And like the good guys are like, they're going to release the gas. So we're going up in these like mountains or whatever. They're like, we have grenades. And then Hitler's car gets there and they start throwing grenades.
Yeah.
Blow it up.
Well, what was happening was apparently some like top Nazi generals, I don't know where they came from exactly, were flying in at the same time to release the gas. So they went to like this really remote airport.
Yeah.
That's when they started throwing the grenades that they randomly got that wasn't explained.
Yeah. It was very confusing.
The gas, because surely it didn't just get completely neutralized by one grenade throw, but I guess that doesn't cause any problems to just throw a grenade at this world-ending gas.
They might as well have just said, they might have just flashed a screen with text on it that's just a black screen and it just says, and then they did something and they won. Hitler died for real. Because that's about as much as I understood at the conclusion of this movie, the last 20 minutes. It's nonsense.
But then they had a little epilogue where they're all together or whatever, and they get a phone call, and they're like, okay, what is this? They pick it up, and Mrs. Day's sister, what was her name again, John? The sister?
Suzanne, I believe.
Suzanne and Camino are calling, and they're like, what? You got married? And then sort of hang up, and they're like, I guess they got married, so the president, or not the president, the president and the professor are like, this calls for a drink, so they go to the bar. And then Phil Collins and his wife kiss each other and the movie ends.
There was actually one scene after that. Oh. I don't know if you saw that. It's very similar to the first scene where because it's like, they don't have a full credit stop, but it says the end and then it has like a 15-second last scene where the phone rings again. The phone rings again and they pick it up and they go, hello. And they go, no, I don't know a Nicholas Fury. Oh, you're Nicholas Fury? And they go, some kind of initiative, is what you're saying. I think we could avenge that. And then they hang up and they say, coming in 45 years. And gosh, I'm excited for whatever they have in store then, because it's going to be good.
But yeah, as you see, very confusing, convoluted plot.
It is wild.
Now, the history of this film, there are some fun facts that me and Eli have researched and created some questions for the three of you regarding.
Okay.
Yes, three. Oh gosh, there are three other people besides us, Kylan.
Yeah, there are. I didn't think there was anyone in the world, but
go right.
That's wrong. Okay, so I guess I'll ask the first question.
Go for it.
So this is multiple choice. When was this movie shot? A, 1963. B, 1970. C, both A and B. D, we don't know. Or E, all of the above.
Um, could you list those again?
A, 1963.
Uh-huh.
B, 1970. C, both A and B. D, we don't really know. Or E, all of the above.
Do you guys want to guess first? I have a letter in mind.
Well, it was released in 68, so I don't think it would film in 1970.
Interesting. Continue.
Weird to think this is.
I'm gonna say D, we don't know.
Interesting.
Kady,
John?
how about you?
I'm going to go with E,
All of the above?
of course.
An excellent choice.
John?
I'm trying not to bring in outside information, but we talked about this before the show started, and I do accidentally know that this was filmed at 2 separate times. So I'm going to go, but none of the timeline really fits either of the answers you're giving. So I'm going to go with D also, we don't know.
Okay. Well, technically, Kady got it right, but you all were also right. So initially, it was a film called The Madmen of Menduras, which was filmed in 1963. But then, according to all research, sometime in the 70s, they hired some people and made, some extra footage. But we don't actually know what year that's in, which goes back to the fact this movie's in 1968 is when it came out. But the taillights on the Volkswagen didn't start being used until 1973. So it's really confusing. We don't actually know.
Wait, hold on.
There was a 1973 taillight on the Volkswagen Beetle that did not come into use until 1973.
But the film came out in 1968.
This film claims to have a 1968 copyright. We're very confused.
Yeah.
As is everyone else.
That is amazing.
Perhaps they time traveled. It's hard to say. I think it's more likely that either when it was submitted for copyright, it was incorrectly admitted, or that there's some sort of sneakiness where they tried to sneak it back to an earlier year. I don't know why they would do that, though. But it had to have at least been 1973.
I wonder if...
for the first half.
So I know that, just briefly from having accidentally glanced at the Wikipedia page, that the people they hired to shoot that additional footage, I believe, were just film students from UCLA.
Yes.
And I wonder if they were adapting a feature-length, shorter movie to become a TV movie, right? So they added additional footage to make it a longer TV movie. So I wonder if there was some weird thing with the way that, like, royalties and copyright stuff of saying, like, if this came out, this is an older movie, then we have to pay less for it to run it. That's crazy, though. I have no idea.
It's very odd.
All right. Next, I would like another question, please.
Okay. Well, so this one has sort of already been answered.
Oh no!
But what students from which university had at the time? A, UMass. B, Texas Tech. C, UCLA. D, Carson Newman. Or E, all of the above.
I'm definitely going
Carson
with E.
Newman, the Sweatwater Boys,
Absolutely.
Going with E.
You're going with E. Okay. We don't know. There could have been a student that once transferred from one of those schools. So I'm going to have to say it's either C or E.
We could not determine.
And what we could do is get the rights to this movie and pad it more. And then
we should.
I would really like that.
Yes.
So yeah, the professor of, the film class there was the director of this, and apparently he would show it in class and, like, get really mad about the producers of it. Ooh. And this was, like, the last movie he ever made. And Eli had some stuff, like, he worked with some, like, legit actors.
Yeah.
Like,
so hold on. The director, David Bradley, right?
Okay.
He
Two first
like
names.
yes,
Means you should never trust him.
first name man. So this was his final work, as was the case for a couple of other people that worked on this movie. I don't know what that says
The
about
nail in the coffin.
Yeah, but David Bradley, the director, directed a feature-length movie called, I've never heard of this, but Peer Gynt. It's a Norwegian play, but it starred a 17-year-old Charlton Heston. And then he directed the 1950 Julius Caesar that starred Charlton Heston. So this is not like a nobody. This man has actually directed several movies. He also directed something called Drag Strip Riot, which I hadn't heard of, but it was apparently semi-successful. It was one of those like double feature movies that they would show at drive-ins and stuff. And he worked at Metro Goldwyn Mayer. So I mean,
wow,
this is like a semi-successful guy.
Yeah.
And then of course he later taught film study.
Right.
So, who else? The cinematographer was also semi-successful. If I could find him again. Yes, the cinematographer worked on Orson Welles' The Magnificent Ambersons, which, if I remember, was nominated for 4 Academy Awards. So another guy who's like pretty successful. He also worked on several other movies that I hadn't heard of, but they were all apparently pretty good.
Yeah.
So not nobody's involved in this film.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it sort of makes it a more fair, even though I kind of like this movie more than Manos, I think it makes it a more fair contender for worst movie.
Yeah.
Because Manos was made by literally nobody's on a micro budget, and they'd never been involved with any other film productions at all, as far as I could tell.
Yeah.
And this one, it's like actually like established people who just made a movie that's not good.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, kind of a different
It's more of a
thing.
crime.
Yeah.
I would say.
Do you guys think it would have been better if it hadn't had that extra 20 at the beginning? Or
so is that 20? That's the stuff that they added?
Yeah.
the 20 at the beginning is what was added by students.
Oh, I don't. It's weird because I think that's the best stuff in the movie, by far.
Right.
But it would certainly make it more cohesive because then it's clear who our
main
characters are. Yeah. So I think, I guess if you took it out, I think the movie would be more boring. And it would make sense because they don't even really start involving anything that relates to the actual topic of the movie until like 45 minutes in. So I think it would definitely make it more cohesive.
Okay. I would agree.
So next question. This one's true or false.
Okay.
The score of this movie was completely original by Don Hewlett. True or false?
It's true.
Kady?
I want to go with false.
Okay.
I'm also going with false.
All right. Well, Alex, you were wrong.
Yeah, we got him, Kady.
To save money, music from another film, The Devil's Hand from 1961, was used. They used music from another film just to save money for this.
That's fair.
So it was not like, completely original for this film. They used other music because they're like, it will be cheap.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's like a pretty common practice in general. Like that's not super egregious.
Yeah. They also used footage from another movie when Tony's car flips and wrecks. That's stock footage from the movie Thunder Road from 1958.
I was wondering about this because that is weirdly like, it looked too good.
Yes.
And it weirdly was like, it was so totally out of keeping of the rest of the budget of this like movie. So because I was like, wow, I'm surprised that they put that in there and it looks good. So, that explains a lot of stuff.
All right, Eli, would you like to do the final question?
Well, for the explosion at the beginning of the film,
this is the car bomb.
The car bomb. The producers destroyed a 1962 Volkswagen. True or false?
False.
Okay.
True.
Kady?
True.
True. Interesting. That's false. It's also from Thunder Road.
Yeah.
Directly ripped.
So yeah,
As
they
it
didn't
should
destroy
be.
anything as far as I can tell.
So
It was all
that
stolen.
that probably explains another question I had, because the framing of that first car bomb, like our first minute into the movie, is very confusing, because I had to go back and like rewind it frame by frame,
Right.
because they don't give you like a steady shot of our character getting into this car and then it blowing up.
Mhm.
They show it for literally one frame, and then the car starts blowing up to like give you no time to see who's in it. So yeah, it's wild.
So Eli or Kyle, whichever one said this,
Yeah.
you said you don't think they blew anything up for the film?
I mean,
But
I don't know, but based on them taking like stuff from other films, it wouldn't surprise me. Although the one with Hitler's brain,
That's probably the
maybe
only one for this film.
yeah, because
So do you think that they took the footage from other films that like where they blew up the plane and the trucks over at the airport?
they might have.
Huh?
Oh, I said they might have. I don't know for certain.
According to IMDb, the planes were blown up by the filmmakers.
Oh,
The college students.
But it doesn't make any sense the damage that happens to them
terrorism.
from a grenade.
Right.
I don't know if anyone else thought about that, because that's not how grenades work. Grenades are just shrapnel.
Grenade's a song by Bruno Mars.
Exactly. But they took the planes, and so they unbolted all of the wings and wing struts, and then laid those on the ground, and then attached like fabric to where the wings would have been, to make it look like the wings were completely destroyed, because they wanted to be able to repair the damage to the planes and return them.
Fair.
So,
incredible.
but yeah, so those were real, but completely fake, which is fine.
Yeah,
But
that's fine by me.
how dare they?
Yeah. My authenticity.
They should blow up a real plane, dang it.
Yeah. Well, that happens, and they saved Hitler's brain too.
They saved Lucy's
Mussolini
brain.
Boogaloo.
Mussolini Boogaloo?
I think, considering probably how long we spent doing trivia and summary, we might want to skip pitches and changes. But I do just want to talk like super briefly about like overall what we actually felt about this movie. Because I want to start with Kady, because you haven't. We've talked over you too much. I know you've been like trying to get those jabs in, and we keep saying stop. So Kady, you've seen They Saved Hitler's Brain. What are your thoughts? Would you recommend this movie? What were your thoughts while watching this movie? Just give me the rundown.
I would recommend this movie, but it's someone I was mad at.
Wait, who were you mad at? Oh,
Anyone I'm mad at.
Yeah. So this is sort of like it's a trick. You're going to come to them and say,
exactly.
Let's make peace. I'm not mad at you anymore. Could you please watch They Saved Hitler's Brain?
Absolutely.
What were things that you really disliked about this movie or pissed you off? And also maybe what is something you liked about this movie?
Well, for starters, the 20 minutes in the beginning where they were discussing whether or not Tony, like right where Tony showed up, the whole, I'm waiting for Tony. Well, he's not here yet. Kind of struck a nerve, but that's how it be.
Yeah.
It's also one of my favorite things in there, and she's like, I'm Tony. Sorry, brushed your bubble.
I was also a big fan of that. Mm-hmm. It's a real some things never change kind of moment.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
What was, did you have a favorite scene in the movie?
Probably where they went out shopping, like right after, they found out all the bad news. And she's like, want some dishes. She'd probably go get some more dishes. And then she's like,
very good.
You can come back for the second honeymoon. I was like, it's a solid choice.
It's a real show don't tell movie. Or move, I mean. because it tells us so much about who our characters are at their cores.
All right.
What about you guys? Would you recommend this movie? What are your thoughts about this movie, just in brief sum?
I thought the cinematography was good, and some of the acting was okay, but other than that, plot's way too confusing. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. And I know we're not doing the segment, but real quick, if I change one thing, Gilbert Gottfried replaces Hitler. It's Gilbert Gottfried's head. That's the only change. I think it would have been beautiful. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. I thought it was pretty bad. I think since they knew what they were doing, they've made movies before. I think it's a bigger, more offending than Manos.
It's harder to excuse.
Yeah.
Right.
And Manos is at least funny. This was just boring, I thought.
Yeah.
I liked it more than Manos, but I do agree that it is a bit more surprising, definitely, that given that they had so many like serious filmmakers, producers, actors, etc., that it came out so poorly. But I still think it's better than Manos. I know we're not doing this, but since Kylan did it, I have to. If I was to change one thing, I would replace Hitler with Torgo.
Would it be all of Torgo, or would it just be Torgo's head?
It would have to be all of Torgo.
Yeah.
But like still in the same size jar. So
He's squeezed in.
You can't lose those knees.
Does he still have the staff?
Well, overall, I think it was better than Manos. I enjoyed it more than Manos, but still not a good film.
Yeah. Eli.
I think this film at its highest was better than Manos, but at its lowest, it was far worse than Manos. Because the first like 10, 15 minutes of this are, I wouldn't say good, but I was intrigued to see where it was going, and then I found out where it was going, and I lost all interest. I think for how simple of a plot it could have been, they made it far too convoluted. I mean, the idea that Nazis are just in South America, I mean, for one, that's a real thing historically. A lot of them did flee there. So it's not even something you really have to convince anyone of.
Yeah.
But they really could have just been like, Hitler got his brain preserved. We should stop that.
Yeah.
But they make it into this whole thing. The G-gas is really a threat that doesn't matter, because why do you need a new weapon? It could just be Hitler alone is a problem.
Yeah.
Like, they introduced the whole G-gas thing. There's the whole investigation that then ends and then restarts because new characters have to find it out, which is completely pointless.
Yeah.
I just thought it was too convoluted for its own good. But parts of it were better than Manos.
Yeah.
John?
I think I'm pretty much on the same page with all of you guys. I would say I really liked the first, 30 minutes, which I guess was just all the new stuff that they shot by those film students. So I want to see what those film students made. Like if they were just able to remake that movie, that would be my change. I would just say, have all the people who shot the first part go back and retroactively shoot all the rest of the stuff.
Right.
So like if it was a movie where it was like a buddy cop movie where it's Tony and War and Peace, and they're trying to like figure out what's going down, I think that would be fun. Because I liked those characters. They seemed like they had a good dynamic.
Yeah.
And it seemed like there was potential for that to grow, but not a great movie. So that'd be my change. It is definitely better than Manos, I would say, for that 20 minutes alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, not great.
Kylan.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say,
which is odd because that was the time that had none of the award-winning people in it.
Exactly. Yeah. Kylan, what are we going to watch next week before we?
Next week we're watching The Thing with Two Heads from 1972. From what I understand, it's a movie about a racist white man who grows a black man as a head, and they have some hijinks. I think that'll be a pretty enjoyable bad movie. Just real quick before we close it out, just like 2 words. Each person, does it deserve a 0%? And what do you rate it out of 10? For me, I think it does not because of the cinematography, and I give it about a 3.5 out of 10. Alex?
It doesn't deserve a 0. I could probably give it a 3.
Eli?
Doesn't deserve a 0. I would give it like a 1.2.
Doesn't deserve a 0. I would give it a 5 out of 10.
Kady?
Doesn't deserve a 0. Probably 3.5.
That's fair. All right. It's been fun, guys. We'll see you guys next week.
Kady, thank you. Next week.
You're a hero, Kady. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Next week, The Thing with Two Heads.
Great job, everyone.
Yeah, we've really done it.
All right, so
This is less than
you want
a
to try
minute.
in context, I
Actually,
guess.
really long.
Oh, yeah.
It is a long less than a minute. Kady, do you have anything you want to plug right before we get shut down?
I'm good. Thank you, though.
Okay.
All right.
Plug new exercise for men.
Plug your
Plug your appearance.
plug your computer into the wall.